Okay. It is October 18th. We're at Taylor Creek Elementary. We are going to cover some new material available with 10.8, the new software from Smart, and we're also going to focus heavily on how you can use your Smart document camera to digitize content and combine that with the My Content folder in the gallery, really utilize it for more effective instruction and freeing us from our document camera. First thing I want to show you is the neat calligraphy pen that is part of 10.8. Most of you already have 10.8, the latest and greatest Smart software, but if you don't, it will be coming soon. The computer woke up again. This is the calligraphy pen right here, and if I pick up a pen off of the pen tray, it's immediately going to default to the pen, but I can override that and force it to go to the calligraphy pen. The calligraphy pen is just a fancy new pen tool that you have available to you that makes ugly writing a whole lot easier to look at. It varies the width and some of the angles and things like that, so it actually looks like calligraphy. Neat pen for you as a teacher, but also for the students. Now, as far as the software itself, 10.8 is on most of the teacher computers at this point, but if you do not have 10.8, which includes a calligraphy pen, you'll be getting that shortly. Technology is going to be pushing out an update so that hopefully all that can be remotely installed or updated in the near future. For the calligraphy pen to work, you do have to have a smart board attached to the computer. So if you have the latest software at home and you don't have a smart board attached to your home computer, it's not going to show up. So your toolbar up here probably looks a lot different than mine. And one of the things we're going to focus on today is how you can customize the toolbars, both here and on the floating tools, to really make them your own. We've covered a little bit the floating toolbar. For a lot of you, this is just something that's in the way and you might want to get rid of it. You can do that from the little lightsaber at the bottom. Hide floating tools. You can also do that to show the floating tools. But before you get rid of it, I would suggest that you look over some of the different customization options you have with the floating tools. The floating tools will give you lots of neat tools when you're outside of Smart Notebook. So if I minimize my screen here, I've got my standard 4 pens and eraser that I can pick up at any time and create a layer of ink on my desktop, over the internet, a Word document, a PDF, whatever the case may be. But it's still just 4 pens and an eraser. With the floating tools, I can pull in a whole bunch of other tools as well. Maybe I want to be able to highlight on the fly. You have lots of these tools available to you with the floating tools outside of Notebook. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool. I'm going to select this and close this ink layer. But let's say we're in the internet. There are a couple of different websites I want to show you, and I'm going to illustrate some of the things that you can do with the floating tools as we're looking at those websites. If you go to Departments, Curriculum, Instructional Technology, and Smart, we've got a lot of websites that you can take advantage of. Smartboard Training Center, EdCompass is the newsletter for Smart. You also have a short and sweet 2-page quick reference guide for the document camera. And if so motivated, there's a 55-page behemoth that you can dig into to really dig into the document camera and some of its features and capabilities. But there's also lots of troubleshooting links and things like that here as well. So if I wanted to maybe get you to focus on just those things that I wanted you to focus on,
That's cool.
I can pull in my spotlight and have you cover those things one at a time. Now, this is part of the floating tools, and this is a feature I put on the floating tools. If I had not utilized the floating tools, I wouldn't be able to do this. Okay? Or if I did do it, and notice we can adjust the degree of transparency, the shape, and all sorts of different things. If I did want to pull in that spotlight, I'd have to go click, click, click. 3 clicks. Here I've got it right here. So most of the tools you can get to it in multiple ways, but it may take a whole lot longer than if you just put them on the floating tools right here. Some of them you cannot get to with a bunch of clicks over here unless you put them on the floating tools.
Do you have to orient your smartboard before you can use your floating tools?
Well, normally you want to orient your smartboard at the beginning of every day anyway, so that, say if I'm highlighting, it actually highlights what I'm making contact with. So it doesn't matter if it's floating tools or anything else. If I make contact with the board and it shows up that I'm making contact over here, then we need to orient it. So I generally do that once at the beginning of every day. Sometimes I do it at lunch. Anytime I zoom in or out with my projector, if you've got that capability, that will really throw it off. Or, if the board is on wheels and it gets bumped, that can throw it off as well. But generally, you just do it once a day. So we've got lots of neat tools right here on our floating toolbar, but maybe we don't want all of this on there, or maybe we want some other things. If you click on the little customized cog right here, you see all the different options that you have available to you. Let's say I don't want to have a on-the-fly screen shade, so I drag that out of there. I don't want to have the lines, so I drag that out of there. I do want to have a shortcut to my keyboard, and occasionally you have to press and give it a second or try it twice, and it pulls it in. But you have the ability to pull these things in, and with a little bit of adjustment here, make Smart your own. So maybe you want to be able to highlight, you want to pull on the spotlight. Here's our little magic pen. There are a few things that I have all the time. I want to be able to highlight all the time. I want to be able to do a capture so that I can capture text and images and pull them in a notebook all the time. I love the spotlight tool and the magic pen. This is the screen capture toolbar, so it includes 4 different capture options instead of just a rectangular capture, which is what this one is. So that's a little bit of overkill. I'm going to just pull that one off there and just leave that one. Once you get it like you want it, then you can click done and you're good to go. Notice there are names underneath all the icons that indicate to some degree what they do. This can accelerate the learning curve and help you pick up on the software a little bit faster than if you were just playing with it and experimenting. So once you have got it how you want it, you can always send it out of the way right there. But when you're ready to pull it in, you have all those things available to you. Say I want to take a picture of the highlighting that I did. Click my screen capture toolbar. I'm going to go with the rectangular capture whatever it is that I want. Takes a picture and it sends it in to Notebook. And here's our mixed reality toolbar, which I'm going to turn off right there. Okay. So a couple other websites that I want to show you real quick. Also from our district website, if you click on, rid of that, is...
Okay, what was that one?
This is the Smart page.
And it's under...
Departments, Curriculum, Instructional Technology, and Smart. Yeah, there's lots of neat websites under Instructional Technology. The next one I want to show you is under Instructional Technology as well. It's non-district websites. The non-district website is a list of sites that have been cleared by technology and that are open for teachers to utilize here at school. There are tons of really, really neat websites that I've got from a variety of different places. If you put the mouse over them, it gives you a description of what they are and what they can do.
This is under the technology?
Instructional technology. Yeah, and I'm under curriculum, so go to curriculum first, then instructional technology, and you'll see it. And I'll scroll up a little bit so you can see the path. So from curriculum, instructional, and then non-district websites. Now, I showed my wife these, and she said, wow, look at all these amazing websites. That's really neat. How do you know what you use for what? And I said, well, put your mouse over it, and you'll see a description of each. And though that was really neat, she said, what do I use for 8th grade science? Well, it's kind of an overwhelming list, and that takes a lot of time for you to look through that and see what you can use for what. So I looked at other options. Delicious is what I am really building and working with right now. Delicious is a weird name for a great website. Delicious gives you the ability to bookmark any website that you go to from any browser on any computer. So whether I'm on one campus or at home or using my phone, I can bookmark it on Delicious. There are 365 websites. The Smart 3D content I think I added this morning. Here's the neat thing about Delicious. Okay, and my site is just delicious.com/folksy, you can tag any bookmark or favorite with as many tags as you want on Delicious. So let's say we scroll down here, look at one that has multiple tags. So look at this Time Glider web-based timeline software. If you come to the Delicious site and you click any of these tags, Web 2.0 all the way to Social Studies, this website will come up. So over here you can see all the tags listed on the right-hand side. I'm going to click alpha so that they're alphabetical. But any of these tags you can click on and you will see those things that are available with that tag. So let's say we go to Smart. So if I click on Smart, that 365 websites went down to 36. So now I can see those things that are specific to the smartboard, including some new 3D content. So we're going to click on Smart 3D content. Hopefully it'll remember me as being signed in. The Smart Exchange now requires you to sign in order to download or upload. I won't get into why they're having you do that. I will say that to register takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It's free, and then to sign in takes no time whatsoever. But when you first come to Smart Exchange, I'd recommend signing in before you start your search. That way you don't lose your search results when you go to download something and it takes you to the sign-in page. So I'm already signed in, and you can see that up here. I clicked on the Smart 3D link from my Delicious site, and now we've got a whole bunch of 3D content. We pulled in the shark last period, so let's go ahead and pull in the fish this period. So I click download, it tells me, hey, this isn't available for downloading, and then it lets me download it. Notice this is a gallery item. Gallery items will go in your gallery so that you can have access to them anytime, anywhere, in any of your notebook files. So I'm going to just save it, fish, to my desktop, and close this out. And we'll pull in that fish here in a minute. So notice, in addition to the tag Smart, there's also, you can add extra tags. So if I wanted to click Smart and then Elementary, it would just show me those that had both of those. So if I click Elementary, then those 365 sites are reduced down to 44. So that isn't to say that those other websites aren't good for elementary. That is just to say that those 44 sites specifically I know are good for elementary. So this is what I'm building on and working on right now, and I highly encourage you to explore some of the things on there. I can't say that every single one of these is open at school, but over time, I'm going to start approaching technology and testing them out, and I'll start adding a tag that says whether it's open at school or open at home. They're all educational in nature, but I just can't guarantee that they're open. Some of them may not have been rated yet, and so may be blocked just for that reason. But this is what I'm building on right now. Okay, so we have covered some of the neat websites, the calligraphy pen, and how to customize our floating toolbar. But now I want to show you how you can customize your main toolbar actually within Notebook. I told you yours may not look like mine. Well, if you go to View, Customize Toolbar, look at the options we've got now. Notice there are names underneath all of these. Really accelerates the learning curve because you can actually see what some of these things are for to a much greater degree than just seeing an icon. Now this is simple drag and drop too. I'm not using the clickers today, so I'm going to drag that off. But I really like to work with lines, so I can have straight lines for identifying things in text, so I'm going to pull that up. I don't want to have the lines right there, though. I want to have them next to my selection tool. So it's simple drag and drop. Lots of really neat things in here. There are a few that I would highly recommend that you have on here. First, have the full screen option. You always want to be able to go to full screen to make things bigger. Next is the single/dual page. You want to be able to switch between viewing one page at a time and 2 pages. And I'm going to show you how you can use that and this pin page option together for really effective instruction. The other thing I really like to have is my screen capture toolbar up here so that I can capture things from anywhere. I like them on my floating toolbar and I like them in Notebook so I don't have to go 3 clicks to get to it. The other thing I really like is the Magic Pen. And I'll show you some tricks with the Magic Pen here in a second, but I like having that accessible as well. The Magic Pen, in its most basic function, has some neat things to increase engagement and make sure that kids are paying attention to what's going on with disappearing ink. But it has a few other neat features too. With the Magic Pen, if you just draw a circle, it gives you an impromptu spotlight. You can't resize it, so you have to make the circle however big you want, but it has to be a circle for the spotlight. And then here's another really neat feature of the Magic Pen. If you draw a box with it, it's a zoom. And now you can zoom in on individual words. What's the difference between the connotative and the denotative meaning of this word? What does this detail in the picture imply about how Johnny feels about Susie, whatever the case may be? And so with the Magic Pen, we've got 3 different features: disappearing ink, impromptu spotlight, and a zoom option. And that's why I like having that available as well. Again, you can arrange this however you want. Once you have, under View, chosen to customize the toolbar, you can move them, and you can add to, and you can delete as well. Okay, so we have covered the calligraphy pen, and we've covered customizing toolbars and floating tools. Now we're going to focus on the real meat of today. And that is, how can we use our smart document camera so that we are not chained to the document camera? There's a natural progression that many teachers go through using visual aids. It starts with the overhead and transparencies, messy wet arrays, trips to the copier, plastic jamming in the copier, a real nightmare potentially. When you get the document camera at first, you're excited because, at a click, you can pull in your document camera. Then you realize, well, I can't see the entire page. It's not as big as it could be. If you're at that point, let me show you how you can take advantage of it to a greater degree. First, go full screen. Then take your smart document camera, drag that using the bar at the top to the top left, extend your page, and then select the document camera. So just like any other image, you can resize it and make it bigger. And now we've got a much bigger view. For some of you, at this point, you're sitting here with a hard copy with pens and highlighters, and you are chained to the document camera, and you have to have multiple hard copies printed out so you can mark them up individually with each class so that they can actually be with you as you're actually marking things up. But what this means is you have to have multiple hard copies, and if you want to mark up your textbook or something like that, you have to make a copy of that. And you're chained to the document camera, and you're not up there at the board taking advantage of many of the different features that you can use with it. So what I would suggest first is realize that anything under the document camera can be digitized, and it's very, very simple and easy to do. If I move this down a little bit, you see we have options for zooming in and out right here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out to illustrate my next point. And we also have the ability to adjust the brightness right here, and we also have an autofocus button, which is usually what I use most of the time. There is a manual focus if you're dealing with things that are 3 dimensions and it's not focusing on the right spot. That can be helpful. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more for those teachers that want to be able to pull in the entire page. So now we've got the entire page right there. And teachers say, well, that's great, but Johnny and Susie in the back are not going to be able to see that very easily. Well, that's true. And we're going to show you how to overcome that here in just a second. But realize anything that we put up here, we can digitize with a click. The little camera right here is going to take a picture of whatever the document camera is seeing, close the document camera, and now it's a picture. So if I want to pull in an entire page and it's really big and massive, I can zoom out and get a little piece of this page right here, which may not necessarily be ideal. Or you can also extend the page here a little bit. You can also turn it so that you can take advantage of the width. Then you can zoom in a little bit more. So now I've got just that page. I'm going to autofocus it. There's a little button on the camera as well to autofocus in addition to right here. So now I've got that page and just that page. So now I can click the camera to take the picture, select it, and because it's a picture, I can flip it. Hopefully I'll get it straight up and down. Now, not really. Here's the advantage to this. You don't have to have hard copies anymore because you can do anything and everything that you want to do with digital ink, and you can have multiple copies of it as well. Before I actually start marking this up with a class, what I do is I put it in my gallery. And this is where the real power of digitizing your materials comes into play. If you click on the gallery options right here, you know the gallery essentials. That's all the preloaded stuff that's similar to clip art that you have access to. A lot of teachers are not taking advantage of this other folder called My Content. My Content gives you the ability to create any folders that you want, even create subfolders underneath there. So I've got under Taylor Creek, an untitled folder. I can create another folder underneath that. So maybe this is first 6 weeks, Unit 1, pictures. You can have it, the names of the folders reflect the content. Maybe this is spelling words, maybe this is grammar, whatever the case may be. You know, most of my examples are ELA related because that's my background, but it's very simple if you have that folder selected to hit the drop down and say you want a new folder, and it immediately embeds it right underneath whatever folder was selected. So then, let's say I want to take this picture and I want to put it in this folder. Most of the time when you're teaching, this auto hide is selected so that when you pull something up over here to look at it and you click over here, it goes away and it gives you the big workspace so that you can see more and work with it. And that's the way you want it 99% of the time. But if you want to digitize it, if you want to pull it into the gallery, deselect auto hide, then drag it in. And you can see the little plus. I have 0 items in this folder, but now I have my picture. And here's where it gets really neat. First period comes in, and we mark this up. Next period comes in. I don't have to make another copy of it. I just pull it in. There it is. Okay? So, you can digitize an entire page if you want, or you can digitize little chunks, and we'll talk about that here in a second. The neat thing is, once it's in digital form, you can put it in the gallery and access it tomorrow. You can access it next year. It's in the gallery and available to you at any time, so that you don't have to go back to your desk to find something or move things around on the document camera. You're up here. It's also great because ultimately the technology is best utilized by the students being up here. I'm going to show you how they can use it just like you can. All right, so at this point, you may realize when you're digitizing things, there are different options for the lighting. It's all about the lighting. This is the sign-in sheet at Hannah with all the lights on, the document camera and the overhead lights. And some rooms have outside lights and windows, have windows that will affect this as well. But you can see it's a little washed out right here. It's okay right here. This is the same thing with the document camera light turned off. So here, this is a little bit sharper, but the overhead lights still have that kind of washed out. Here is just the document camera light, so the classroom lights have been turned off. So this is a little darker, but not washed out. There's no glare, but here we have a little bit of glare from the document camera light. So you look at this and you think, well, Johnny or Susie in the back of the room, they're not going to be able to see this very well. So is this really the best solution? It isn't. What I would recommend is that you have your instructional materials match what everything in the way of brain-based research suggests is most effective for teaching. Do it in chunks. Just because they've got one worksheet that has a bunch of parts to it doesn't mean that you have to pull in the entire worksheet and then use a screen shade and say, don't work ahead. I only want you focused on this particular portion. Instead, just give them the portion, digitize that portion that you want to talk about. Then you can write whatever notes you want on here. You can mark it up. And when it's time to go to the next part of the worksheet, maybe it's just a section below that, you click the next page and you can go to that next portion. So you have the ability to digitize just little chunks. And again, just like a whole page, it's very easy for you to pull that into the gallery so that you have access to it at any given time. Now, you'll notice that page that we digitized and pulled in over here. It is NBK/2504- blah, 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 blah. When you're digitizing text, you're not going to be able to see what it is when it's in the gallery. You'd have to pull it in, see it, oh, that's not right, and delete it. But here's the neat thing. You can rename, just like you can rename the folders, you can rename anything in there to whatever you want. So maybe this is page 32, Lit Book. So when it's time, you've got a new page in here, and you want to pull that in. You can see, okay, here's my content. I've got a whole bunch of stuff in there. I need 2nd grade, 5th grade, whatever the case may be. You can see those names, and you can access the material really quick without ever having to go to your desk. So my recommendation to you is to digitize in chunks and to teach in chunks. Not necessarily an entire page at one time with screen shade, but in small chunks. Let's say you insist on pulling in the entire page at one time. The document camera resolution is okay, but it's not ideal. You have another option available to you. The Brother scanners that we use for Eduphoria answer sheets are not just for the answer sheets. You can go down there and you can digitize some of your worksheets, some of your lit pages, so you can pull them into your gallery in Notebook. Look at this, same page, but look at the resolution. Look how sharp that is. So I can pull in the entire page using that scanner, and I can email it to myself, or I could save it to a little flash drive to get it to my teacher computer, but I can digitize an entire page. And once I've got the entire page in here, if I wanted to, I can always pull a little piece out of it and say I just want to see the speech department or this particular graphic or whatever the case may be. I can always take a little chunk out and then I just have that. But it's high resolution. So the one thing I would point out here when you're using the Brother scanner for this, in addition to, how do you do it? There's typically a Control Center 3 icon on the desktop for whichever computer it's attached to, or down here at the bottom you'll see a little Control Center icon for the printer or scanner software. You double click on that, 4 icons come up. There's Image, File, OCR, and one other one. If you double click on Image, it's going to start scanning immediately with the defaults, whatever you placed on the scanner. And that's what this one was done with. And Hannah's got the same exact scanner that you do. This is 24,000 kilobytes. That's the size of this uncompressed file. Here's the same thing in a JPEG, 611. So we've gone from 24,000 down to 611. Look at the resolution. It's still really, really sharp. When you are emailing something and it's 24,000 kilobytes to yourself, it may take 3 or 4 minutes for that thing to load. But something like this is going to go a whole lot faster. Same thing when you're talking about the amount of space and storage that you've got available on your flash drive or your teacher computer. If you get in the habit of weighing that balance between high resolution and high file size so that you can find it as sharp as it needs to be, but as small as it can be, then you're going to be ultimately a lot better served than if you just, don't mind them being big and massive. It works at first, but then you run out of room. So you can pull in the entire page with the scanner. Questions about that? So I recommend pulling it in small little chunks, because I'll show you some other things that you could do with it that you can't do with an entire page. Because then you don't have to use the screen shake. You just have them focused on that particular portion that you want them to focus on. And you can resize it. If we take a small little picture, of whatever it is we want, if I tried to resize that entire page, it would be difficult. But if I try to, let's just cut that and right click, paste it. If I try to resize just that piece, I can make it as big as I need to for Johnny and Susie to see in the back. Much easier to work with a small piece than a big, massive page. Okay, so we've covered how to digitize full pages or partial pages using the document camera. Let's pull in a blank page. Here's our document camera. I'm going to show you one trick. Let's say the camera will take a picture of whatever it sees. And then from there, we could always crop it using this little tool to take out that chunk or piece that we want. But realize that you can have a live view right here and just pick out that portion that you want. So I click on my rectangular, my squared off capture, and I'm just going to pull the text out. So now I can close that document camera and I've got just the text that I wanted. So you can always pull straight from a live view in order to get that digital content that you're looking for. And here's the other advantage to this, going with the small chunks. To make that real quick. Right now we're zoomed out so we can see the entire page. So the resolution was good, but it wasn't amazing. You can always zoom in now. I can do it up at the document camera, I can do it here. You can always zoom in and then autofocus, and then it makes it even sharper. So now when I capture it, ultimately my resolution is going to be even better. Okay, so we've covered how to use the Smart Document Camera to pull those hard copies into my gallery. This is something that makes your life easier and easier over time because you don't have to go to your teacher edition, you don't have to go to your computer, your document camera, you've got it all right here. But ultimately, as I said, you want the students to be up here. And so there are a couple tools that I want to show you that can really make it easy for them to get up here. I like using what I call a perceived accountability. I show them before we even read the passage. Okay, today we're going to focus on characterization, imagery, plot, and figurative language, whatever the case may be. You can adjust it to however many you want. It can, well, within limitations. I think you can go up to 12 or 13. That'd be a lot to focus on in one passage. But you show them ahead of time what things you're going to focus on. Look at these things very carefully. Maybe you need to write these down. These are the things that we're going to focus on as we read this passage. And then somebody is going to be chosen by the computer to come up here, hit the spinner, and discuss these things with the class. You can only pick one partner if you're the one chosen. So this is where it gets really neat. You've got an entire class, and you've got motivated Susie who wants to answer every single question. When you don't call on her, she's like, oh, you know, she's all let down. And then you've got, you know, maybe Johnny who is just, every time you call on him, he thinks you're out to get him because he's not paying attention. Well, you're not calling on anybody. The computer is. So now everybody sees their name up here. They see what they're going to be held accountable for, and they realize that they could be that one that's called on. So this bumps up your level of engagement drastically because it's no longer the teacher picking somebody, and it's no longer some weird dynamic between you and the student because they want you to call on them and you don't, or vice versa. The computer is going to call on whoever. You have a no repeat option right here. I never used it. What's the problem with the no repeat option?
Once they get called on, they know that they don't have to answer
They're
the
mentally
question.
done at that point. They can sit back and tune out because they don't get called again. But it's very easy to determine the number of names, put in your class list. If you have multiple classes and groups of kids that you work with, you can have one of these on every single page. And you can even, if you want, name that page. I'm going to rename this page second period. You have one notebook file that's got just your randomization, you know, just your student selectors. So I really like that. So let's say Carol comes up and she hits the spinner and it lands on something that she doesn't know. Oh, Mr. Folk, I have no idea what the difference between direct and indirect characterization is. She starts making a move back to the security and comfort of her desk, and you say, no, 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 you don't need to flip through your glossary and your notes and spend 5 minutes doing that. You know where it is. Right there in the gallery. And so she goes to, I don't know which one of these have. Ah, there's characterization, direct versus indirect. I knew that. I knew that. Okay. So now you go to the next page into your content or whatever the case may be. So the students have access to all of those things that you want them to have access to here, just like you do. So their reference material. Instead of Carol going back, looking in her glossary and her seeing it one more time, she pulls it up in front of the entire class and all the kids see it one more time. And that repeated exposure to it helps them pick up on it quicker. And it gives them confidence. They like coming up to the board, being able to access the materials and so forth. So, you've got single pages. Find a good page to illustrate the next thing I'm going to show you here.
We have to
We're
go.
going to be our kids.
Maybe
Okay.
our kids in T1s.
Okay. Here's the dual page mode. If you click on the dual page, you have the ability to drag things from one page to another, okay, which is really neat. You can, when you shuffle through it, it rotates the pages. But let's say you've got one page that you've got all of your skills on. You've got all the tools that you want them to use to apply to the content. So you can pin that page. Then this page stays and your content varies. So this is really neat because then you can have labels, highlighting, directions, reference material, whatever you want here. And then the material that they're applying that knowledge to is constantly changing over here. Well, you may be thinking, well, when you drag this over, then it's gone. Well, you have the ability to, from the drop-down, infinitely clone anything. Maybe it's a period, maybe it's a blue underline, whatever the case may be. So they drag that there. They go to the next page, they see new material, they drag something else to that. So the material is constantly changing, but the skills and the instruction and the tools they use to interact with that material can all stay in place with the pin page option. But notice, when I go to single page, it grays out. It's only when we're in dual page that this actually will work. So, we've covered a whole lot of material, and I know you need to go, but are there any parting questions that you have? Remember, this is not something that you need to remember how to do. If you walk out of here and do nothing else, I'd suggest customize your toolbars and start digitizing some of your content with your document camera and build your gallery, because you'll love having all that stuff accessible right there. The random kit chooser and the spinner and all those really neat things, they're all under the Lesson Activity Toolkit. 168 different items. Everything from rotating dice, you name it. All kinds of fun stuff. And this one appears to be in French.
Okay, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Very good, though. A lot of stuff I needed to know.
Have fun. Email me if you have questions. Once I'm done going through the campuses, I'd be glad to come sit in your room and kind of familiarize myself with the content so I can make suggestions based on what you do specifically. Everything that I talk about is based on my background because I don't know your content or what you do with your kids. But
Yeah.
nice.
Sure. Can you tell me?